Welcome back to the Pathfinders podcast. I'm your host, Pete Schramm, founder and CEO of Latitude and basketball coach. The season is getting ready to start for high school basketball in Western Pennsylvania. So on the podcast today, we're going to talk about people's career journeys, and we base this off of the book, Pathfinders, the methodology, right? Two things in there where we have their career maps, the 5 dimensions of it. We get into the titles they had, the skills, achievements, educations, accomplishment, and the fun stuff along the way, past, present, and future. And then once you have that little bit of a plan, we couple that with your personal board of advisors, those multiple mentors and guides. So our guests walk through their amazing journeys and stories. We'll share this on LinkedIn and post, so please comment along the way and follow on the other podcast platforms. Our guest today, favorite quote, "You can be viciously mediocre or get the F after it." Jeremy Piven, or maybe it's Piven. Josh will clarify that. And he has a fun way of reminding himself about this each day. So Josh, you'll tell us a little bit more about that whenever you come up onto the stage. A little bit of background around Josh LeFebvre, 25 years corporate learning experience, much of it in leadership roles affecting change, transformation, innovation. The guy knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's doing, and he's fun to work with. More importantly, he's a father, son, husband, lover of pizza. So we'll have to ask him where he is on the ratings of those Barstool pizza reviews, and a pretend chef. Fun fact, before we bring him up on stage, is that he was once a nightclub DJ as well as a karaoke host. So we'll see if he does any singing for us today, and probably figure out what some of those favorite karaoke songs are that he has, and a whole slew of random quirky jobs throughout high school and college. So without further ado, Josh, welcome to the show.
Hey, Pete. Thank you very much. It's really great to be here.
So before we get into the juicy stuff, let's talk about the saucy things, right? So what's the song with karaoke, if you're going to sing one? What's the best pizza? Tell us priorities. Come on.
Right. Getting into the sauce with pizza discussion, I think is highly appropriate. So you ask about, so this was a long time ago, Pete. I was like 21 years old doing karaoke shows in college and in local bars. At the time, I didn't have necessarily a go-to, but I found it so ridiculous that I was a karaoke host. I would always sing some sort of like female singer, like a Madonna song or this is how long ago Whitney Houston was still like cranking stuff out. So yeah,
I love it. Now on to the pizza. Where are you going?
Sir. As to like what kind of pizza, like what are my toppings?
Do you say what pizza shop? Pizza shop. Where are you going in the country? Where's some of the favorite?
So I split my time between Baton Rouge and Atlanta, northern part of Atlanta. I have to say in Baton Rouge, there is probably my all-time favorite pizza, believe it or not, from a place called Red Zeppelin. They are fantastic. And here locally, that's tough. I haven't found anything that I'm absolutely in love with, kind of your common like regional chains like Marco's or Mellow Mushroom, somebody like that.
All right. So growing up, Josh, what did you want to be? What was that childhood dream?
So the practical, I'm sure I went through kind of the normal childhood phases of, I probably wanted to be a fireman or something like that at some point. But more realistically, and as I matured and started really thinking about it, I kind of hit the classics, wanted to be a lawyer. And I had flirted with the notion of architecture. Lawyer kind of won out, and that's the route I started pursuing. I switched course a little bit midway through college. But my secret passion, what I really, really, really wanted to do, I wanted to be basically Dana Carvey or Mike Myers. I wanted to be on Saturday Night Live.
Oh, whoa. Okay.
I don't even know if my parents know that. But yeah.
Okay, so then what did you end up studying in school? You mentioned there's a little bit of law, yes, no.
Yeah, so I was a poli-sci grad.
Uh-huh.
And I did kind of move through this. When I graduated, I did a lot of event planning when I was in college and really kind of liked that. And I tried to marry the two together. So my original idea, my original kind of mission and ambition coming out of college was to be a political event planner, like a fundraising planner. The first job I found in Washington, D.C. was actually planning events for government executives.
Oh, there you go.
And so, but what I found was, and I think you've probably had certain similar epiphanies in your journey. What I found very early on, what I enjoyed about being at those events and playing host and manager of those events, it was the look on people's faces when they would come out during coffee break and they had this little aha moment. They were holding in their hands. This is back when literally you had like binders of content, right? So they're actually like holding in their hand a new template for performance management or balanced scorecard or project management or something. And they just had this glow about them that signified or symbolized, signaled that they were going to do something better, different at their job. And that was incredibly rewarding. So I stuck with the learning and development path.
So from poli-sci and event planning with government to L&D, talk a little bit more about that transition.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were pretty natural ones, like wanting to get into law, and then I switched a little bit. That didn't really move me as much as I thought it would. So I think sliding over educationally, sliding over to poli-sci and government made a lot of sense. That was pretty much, I would call that a half step, or certainly a lateral type of move. It was that those moments that I was talking about with the actual events, that was probably the turning point, the tipping point.
Okay.
If you will, is like that just experiencing joy in what I was doing, but for far different reasons than I ever anticipated. What I thought I would really enjoy is just the project management piece, pulling off an event, job well done, the complexity of pulling certain events off. That wasn't it at all. It was kind of being the support, of someone else's development, and that was just a bit of guy behind the guy kind of role, and I really enjoyed that.
And so you use those skills and some of those achievements, right? Thinking the career map, methodology there, and you started to interview for L&D roles, or how'd that go?
Yeah. So really, I ended up basically just kind of flipping the percentages of how I viewed my role.
Okay.
So for a while, I didn't really do anything different. I just accepted the fact that I was deriving purpose and my own personal happiness for very different reasons. So in other words, for a while, I considered myself an event planner or manager first, that also accomplished a bit of training and development, learning and career development. Whereas what I realized, what I really enjoyed was the development piece of it. So at first it was just a mental flip. I was doing the exact same job for probably the next 2 years or so. But I was just finding different bits of joy and maybe stretching different muscles, if you will, than I thought I would.
And we talk a lot about stretch assignments, right? So if somebody's in their role and they want to get into, the next piece, the next phase, well, how can I use those other muscles, right? Develop some of those other capabilities, skill sets, if I'm not able to change title or position. So I like that you referenced that. At some point, though, you move companies because you're not, working for, political event planning company today. So was there a person or a couple of people that were kind of guiding you along the way? Some people that you'd bounce ideas off of as you're getting into that next step?
Yeah, of course. And I think it took, I went back to grad school. And fairly early on, it was early 20s even. So I'd only been out of college for maybe a couple of years before going back to get my MBA. And what I really found enjoyable about that experience is I went to a much smaller university. I think typically the grad school experience has a much different, more personal ratio of faculty to student. And I really enjoyed and was able to take advantage of those, I think, deeper relationships. And in fact, some of the best advice I ever got, I remember graduating, or I was about to graduate, and I just kind of walked the faculty halls where found my professor's offices, and then I would knock on their door and say, look, as I get back out into the sort of real world, what's your advice for me? Which was a neat exercise, and I think they all kind of enjoyed that someone was doing that. I got a lot of the normal stuff, and kind of your usual suspects of, work hard, attach your name to a certain skill or whatever. But there was a brilliant piece of advice in there that I'll never forget. It was my strategy professor, and she just looked at me and said, 3 things. Like, be on time, know a little bit about what you're talking about, and don't be an a-hole.
Yeah.
And she followed up by saying, you'd be amazed at how many people can't do 1, let alone 2, and certainly not all 3 of those things. If you can do 2 or 3 consistently, you'll go very far. And that was just such succinct, honest advice that I don't think I would have gotten anywhere else. And it was because of that relationship, being able to take advantage, again, of the accessibility of faculty in sort of a different type of program.
I love it. So then finish up the MBA, and where'd you go from there?
Then I went to a more traditional training firm, an outfit called ESI. They've since been acquired and are probably somewhere under a different name now.
Yeah.
But they basically did project management training. And so PMP, if you or your audience are familiar with that was kind of their bread and butter. So my role was essentially working with clients to customize otherwise off-the-shelf content. And so that was my first real experience where it wasn't me necessarily picking and choosing the bits of training and development portions of my job and trying to kind of square peg round hole the role a little bit to contort it to the job I wanted it to be. This really was it. And so I was basically fairly junior still. I think I was 26 or something like that. But it was like kind of the first real cut, the real swing at this career development, training and development, learning and development, talent development career path. And I've stuck with it, obviously, ever since. And to your, I think, ethos around just development and peers, I think every step of the way.
Yeah.
There's been somebody that, whether it was explicit, formal, obvious, or somebody just kind of rooting for me from backstage, or off in the wings somewhere, that's undoubtedly been a huge, huge part of my own growth, development, and success.
Talk to us a little bit, Josh, about what exactly is learning and development. Does that fall under HR? Is it operations? Is it something that I can do if I'm just a manager? What is L&D?
Yeah. So it's going to depend on the firm, the organization, where it actually sits. You'll normally find it in HR. You might have a broader function called talent that may be split into things called talent management and or development management. Talent management is typically things like succession planning, performance management. And then the development, talent development, I equate typically with some form of learning. Having done this for so long, I have perhaps a much broader sort of lens and definition of learning and development. I don't consider it strictly the purview or domain of classroom, but instead really view it as being wholly inclusive, including formal or informal mentorships, apprenticeships, and those types of advisors that you often speak of.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that you have a favorite lens or a favorite part of the L&D realm? We don't want to pick favorites, but if there's something that I eat this part up.
Oh, wow. That's a really good question. I have to say it, and I've been fortunate enough to spend the latter half of my career in some form of leadership role where my perspective, my view was fairly wide.
Yeah.
And I think, and that allowed me to do some really neat, interesting things from a programmatic and sort of an organizational influence standpoint. So I wasn't so much strictly in design at any point in my career, although I really do enjoy that. Wasn't strictly measurement. You'll find specialists in sort of all these, that project management array of learning and development like you would anything else.
Yeah.
Again, I've been fortunate enough to be able to manage the whole program and see the influence or impact that more holistic view can have on transforming an organization, or at least a department.
Let's talk a little bit more about if I'm a small business, medium-sized business, and I want to just get started with L&D stuff, right? You're pretty good. You've done it small, medium, large. Let's just talk through what good looks like and tap into the brain of Josh here. What do I do? Just give me some of the building blocks for the foundation. Maybe I'm an HR of one, so I put my training and development hat on for a day or two a week. What am I spending my time on?
Well, I think the fact that in an organization, the sort of fictional group that we're describing, at being that small, the fact that you're even thinking about this, I think is you deserve an awful lot of kudos. Because a lot of small firms, small organizations just don't, or training and development simply means onboarding. It's like you're a line staff type worker. We're just going to execute on some kind of quote unquote curriculum and teach you how to do your job. So the fact that someone is taking that a step further and thinking through maybe a little more development, how do we get to the next level? I think again needs to be applauded. And then I would really, I think, dive into that notion, that sentiment of like, why? I mean, it feels like it's just the right thing to do for our people, right? But what is the actual problem that you're trying to solve? Do you suspect that there are greater efficiencies to be found within the organization? And if people could do a better, different job, you could recoup and find some of those efficiencies. Or you do have a bit of a career ladder, but people are leaving earlier than expected. So what's going on there? Like, what is our retention issue there? And a lot of times you're going to find, there's that old adage, right, of people don't quit the firm or the organization, they quit their boss. I think they also quit a lot out of just frustration, inability to see any kind of future. Yeah. So maybe that's the issue. So I would think the person who's thinking this is off on a really, really good first step. I think the immediate next one is some laser focus on what are we really trying to do? What is like anything else, what is the business problem that we're trying to solve?
And how you're able to link it to the organizational needs, right? Because anytime you say, hey, I'm in, this talent function, or maybe I'm also, in charge of or responsible for talent, you're going to need some budget. You're going to need some time to do any of this stuff, right? And if you can say, hey, here's how we're going to see our return on investment over time, Mr. and Mrs. CEO, CFO, COO, you go to them and say, hey, here's what I plan to do. Here's why I plan to do it. Here's where it's been done in other places. And here how we're going to see the return, right? Our people are going to be more connected. They're going to be able to be more productive. They're going to be able to make us more money. And, oh, by the way, they're probably going to stay longer. And I'll give you some updates and reportings along the way. That's, initially how you and I got connected, right? Josh Cutler, one of those hashtag Cutler connections coming to fruition. But it was really to, get some feedback from you, being an L&D leader in the L&D space, right? One of the subject matter experts out there. And as we continue to build Latitude, your insights have been really helpful, right? Checking things out and saying, hey, what are you doing to actually help people? And that's the biggest piece. So I think tech can help organizations whenever they have that plan and that program in place. Josh, you talked a little bit about mentorship there. Let's transition a little bit into two-part question, right? One, where you found some of your mentors and where you would advise people to find some of their mentors. And then two is, what are some of the different questions that you asked that were helpful? I love the piece of, talking to the different professors while on campus. Yeah. And I think let's just copy and paste that to in the office, right? Just go around and ask similar things to people in the office. and those are almost like a precursor to informational interviews there. But where'd you find them? What'd you ask?
Yeah, I was very fortunate in high school to be exposed to, I think, my first quote unquote mentor. And he deserves to be mentioned by name. His name's John Hushin. He was the state's attorney in Woodruff County, Illinois, where I grew up. A wonderful man who was very involved in the community and very involved in, I forget the name now, but those kind of development exposed the high school kids to facets of adult life and careers, right?
Stuff like that.
Yeah, it wasn't that, but you're going down the right captains or something like that. It stood for whatever. But the whole point was, to provide high schoolers with access to professionals in the community so they could start thinking about what they want to be, who they want to be, what they want to be when they grow up.
Huge.
And at the time, that lawyer thing was still very much rattling around in my brain. And he was so marvelous at letting me just shadow him. So here's 16-year-old Josh hanging out in the little courthouse in Woodruff County, Illinois, watching this guy at work. And how fascinating is that? Thankfully, I've never been in a courthouse before up until that point. And I was in one then for all the right reasons, right? But just to have someone to give you a glimpse behind, kind of let you see the wizard behind the curtain of this profession that, as far as I understood it, it was Law and Order or some TV show version. And that was just so unique to me. And he would take me to lunch and we'd kind of chat about how he became a lawyer, what were the hard parts about law school, and all that kind of stuff. And here's me, again, 16 years old, and we're at some Pizza Hut, right? And
of course, we're back to the pizza. I was waiting for it.
But I offered to pay. I was like, well, let me pay for lunch as a thank you for spending all this time with me. And he would always refuse. And finally, he said to me, at some point in your career, in your life, you're not going to know when it happens, but you will find yourself suddenly on this side of the table. There will be some person that you just, for whatever reason, believe in, and they're going to come to you asking questions, needing help, needing advice, needing guidance. He's like, pay for their pizza. And that's just always stuck with me. Again, such early exposure to just the power and presence of just good people. There are a lot of good people out there. To the heart of your question, you might have to sometimes go find them yourself. I have discovered, I've found or experienced that if you ask someone, first off, everybody loves talking about themselves. So asking someone to sit down with you and talk about how did you get to this point in your career? How did you transition to here? What was the hardest thing about becoming a new manager or a new C-level executive, and on and on and on and on? People are going to love to do that. And there are plenty of people out there that just also, I think, believe in the fact that that is just the right thing to do. That is how you shepherd and steward kind of the next generation of leadership. Yep. We can have all the milestone programs we want, but we as leaders have to be physically present and deeply involved in the development of the next people in. And so that would be my encouragement to anyone. And that's what I've been able to do. I've had a few instances where I was fortunate enough to have someone kind of come to me, tap me on the shoulder and offer some advice, take me under their wing a little bit. But primarily, I've sought them out.
You got to be a go-getter and a self-starter. And have you had people that reached out to you and said, hey, Josh, would you be a mentor to me as well?
Not in so many words, but yeah, absolutely.
Question for you, changing it slightly here. You're in an L&D role at an organization. You want to get a mentorship program or an initiative, a couple that you mentioned before, but they say there's no budget. How do you go about that process and fight for what the people need, even if you're getting pushback?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think so. Launching something in that instance that's incredibly formal, probably not going to happen. But I do think there's something to be said for when someone has a bit of a passion project.
Yeah.
And so in this instance, the way you're describing, that's probably ultimately what this ends up being. But look, other than the price of Pizza Hut lunch in 1992 or whenever it was, a mentorship from a state's attorney didn't cost a whole lot.
Right.
And I can't think of, other than the cost of lunch or just the opportunity cost of someone's time, that there's been a lot of real budget requirements to get off the ground with the core of what we're talking about, which is, at the end of the day, you're talking about one person talking to another person and helping them.
Yep.
Why does that have to cost anything? So then the next question becomes structure. And I think, that's where you probably have to be a little careful. Like, how much are you going to bite off? What is the culture in your organization for sort of these skunk works types of initiatives?
Yeah.
Some places are going to be way more tolerant of that than others. So I think you got to be a little careful there. But I don't think there's anything wrong with or anything impossible about someone using their own initiative to create just a small network of people over here that want to help people over here.
See, that's a bit of an alley-oop there. Thank you very much. Back to the basketball. We're bringing all my favorite things together: pizza, basketball, helping people.
Sure.
So let's talk about that blend of the career map and the personal board of advisors coming together. You just mentioned, hey, a couple of different folks, giving them a little bit of guidance along the way. How do you see that adding a little bit more structure, right? Here's my plan. You talked about people wanting to see where they can grow, flourish, develop, and be in this organization with multiple mentors. You've mentioned a couple of different guides and advisors that you've had along the way, but talk to us about how you see that helping individuals and then organizations as well when we couple those two together.
I want to make sure I follow your question. So is it around how sort of these networks of advisors and sort of these guidance counselors, like how they link in with a more formal development structure or plan? Or maybe I'm not, is that basically the core of it?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, that's it, right? I have a career map, and it visually displays where I've been, where I'm at, where I want to go.
Sure.
And then I have 8 to 10 mentors, different guides, my personal board of advisors that I'm able to bounce ideas off of.
Yeah. Well, I think that just makes it easier. I think that a lot of times this relationship that we're talking about is fairly informal. And I think what you've noticed in your own career, your own story, and the value that you're bringing yourself to organizations is providing a little more rigidity, structure, and formality to that. And I think that is nothing but a good thing because it gives you a template. It gives that conversation some structure that a mentor and mentee, whether you're called that, whether you there are instances of coaching where it might be so formal as you have a coaching contract, literally, between yourself and no payment, but a contract that says, these are my obligations and responsibilities to you and to this quote unquote relationship. Or I've never had that. I've just had good people that were willing to spend time with me. But I think what you're offering and talking about is a more formal linkage to, if you are fortunate enough to have one, a milestone career roadmap. This is what we expect out of the next level. And here are the characteristics, behaviors, here are the KPIs, whatever we're going to call them within that particular organization. But here's what it looks like to be at the next level. Here's what it looks like to be ready to go to the next level. And I think that gives you the structure and, again, the template for that conversation. Now you have something real to talk about, as opposed to when it's just a little squishier. I think you're kind of shooting in the dark a little bit, of just taking your best guess of like trying to map someone else's career to your own. And that's not necessarily right either. It'll give you some good ideas, but that doesn't mean it's what you should do.
It's unfortunate how often we hear these stories of people getting caught up in the copy and paste of somebody else's career journey, right? Hey, so-and-so did this, and that's exactly how they went. And at one point in time, it seemed like it was a good fit. You mentioned architect interest early on. I shadowed an architect early on, and I was like, no way, this is not for me. And so that was a good, opportunity to see, hey, what's not supposed to be on my career map. Josh, we're going to get ready to do the summary here. Any closing bits of advice for the community as we're wrapping up today's session on Pathfinders?
Sure. I think the two kind of quotes that I offered up, the one that I cited from Jeremy Pippen, which I think is hilarious. But the reason it's my favorite quote is because I think he was being half serious, half flip when he said it, but it just cuts to the heart of the matter. And I am by no means am I, the guy that gets up at 4 a.m. and gets after their day, right? I wish I was, but it's still, I think just the spirit of it is a good reminder to me. And I think this is what you were talking about earlier. I have it as a recurring appointment at 7 a.m. on my calendar every single day so that I see that. And it has literally gotten me out of bed a few times. I'm I don't want to do today. I don't want to do adulting. And just seeing that, it's yeah, well, I'm not going to be viciously mediocre today. That's for sure. So, get after it. I think that's a great one to carry with you. My college professor's advice, I think, has rung true so many times. But I think that the things that I would offer on top of that would be get comfortable with failure. Get real comfortable with it. And that was really hard for me. I think some people who might be listening to this that really, really know me might be laughing right now because I have not conquered this at all. So I'm not offering up that I am an expert in this, and I've struggled with it for a long, long, long time. So I think the younger you are, the more you can get really comfortable with trial and error as a means of development, the better off you're going to be. And the other couple, I would say, stay what, and these kind of go together. Say what no one else will say, or at least don't be afraid to think and say that. Now, there's always going to be a right and a wrong way to do that. So that's on you or whomever is listening to figure that out. But I think going hand in hand with that is to remember to approach problems by also thinking laterally. So I would take those three.
Okay, now I got to ask a clarifying question. But also
think laterally.
Yeah. What's that mean?
Consider a problem from another point of view.
Okay.
In a nutshell.
I like it, and I think that makes sense.
There's the adage about the it's always a different little tee up, but it's the two kids that are fighting over the lemon. One wants the peel, one wants the actual fruit, and but they're fighting over one lemon or orange or whatever it is in your version of it. But I think that's a great example of thinking laterally, realizing we don't have to assign this piece of fruit to one individual. That's not the answer. If we think a little laterally, we'll realize there's a perfectly obvious solution to this. We can break it apart and you take what you need and I'll take what I need and everybody's happy.
I love it. Josh, thanks for joining us. I'm going to do a quick summary recap and we'll wrap up here. So Josh LeFebvre, Baton Rouge to Atlanta, lover of music and pizza pie. A fair-weather dreamer of law, architect, and an aspiring SNL host. Poli-sci major intending to be a political event planner, and he did just that initially in D.C. He loved guiding others and developing them, took his talents to grad school, and he went along and started his MBA chapter. His strategy professor gave a couple pieces of advice: to be on time, know a little bit of what you're talking about, and number 3, don't be an a-hole. Important to have at least 2 of these 3. Wild how many people don't. He was then customizing training packages at ESI, and so many guides were helping him along the way, some formal, some informal. Gave us a little bit more on the L&D, learning and development breakdown, onboarding, succession planning, learning from formal and informal mentorship, but really just helping people and aligning them what they have in their toolboxes to what the organization needs. And a lot of times L&D gets stuck and stops at onboarding. Kudos to you, small organization and small overwhelmed HR teams on just taking the right steps towards talent development. people need a way to be able to see their future if we want them to stay at our organizations. Mentor number 1 in Illinois, John, thank you for paying it forward. You also gave us, Josh, the tidbits to go out and find people, learn about their journeys. I loved how you did that around the office in grad school, and then how you continue to do it. People love to talk about themselves, so bring your career map to those multiple mentors. It's important. Start small and work with those good people is helpful pieces that you shared. Following Pathfinders to you said, hey, this is helpful. It adds structure, rigor with guidance, and you know what to talk about. You're not just lost. The meaningful motivation helps a lot. If you like Josh's approach to the calendar reminder, do that. And also try on for size, getting comfortable with failure. Problem solve with multiple angles and perspectives. So thanks again, Josh, for guiding us to share the fruit and to pay for their pizza.
That's right. Hey, thanks a lot, Pete. I've really enjoyed this.